It's 2 in the morning. I am absolutely exhausted, but I cannot sleep. Nothing has gone the way it was supposed to. My business is at a complete standstill for months on end. My dream client has turned into a complete nightmare, and I have this feeling, this sinking feeling at the pit of my stomach that I'm in the wrong place, doing all the wrong things. And I can't breathe. I feel like I'm suffocating, like my life is this prison and I'm completely stuck. I stumble into my bathroom and I'm standing in front of the mirror. I'm staring at myself. You may have done this before. And these words just kind of spill out of me. Who are you? I don't even know where this question comes from. But in that moment, in that specific moment, under those circumstances, somehow it makes sense. Do I know that this is the question that is going to unlock this cage I have built around myself? Do I know that I have built a cage around myself? I didn't quite understand the implications or even the power of this simple question. Have you ever tried to answer it? I mean, try it now. Who are you? You might say your name, where you're from, the relationships that you have, the roles that you play. But is that really who you are? Maybe who you are is somehow tied to your body, your age, your gender, your sexual orientation. But is that really who you are? Maybe it has something to do with your upbringing, your culture, your religion, your political views, your, tax bracket. Maybe it has nothing to do with any of that. And who you are is the collection of your experiences, your traumas. Or maybe it's not even that, and it's your feelings, your thoughts, your beliefs. Who are you? That was the question that unraveled my life 2 years ago, and it set it into a tailspin. I did what any reasonable person in my situation would have done, and I got in my car, I went for a drive for 4 months across the country. And when I came back, I still felt stuck. So I did the next reasonable thing. I packed up my stuff, put it in storage, gave up my apartment, gave up my car, and then I grabbed 2 suitcases and moved up to Canada to work on a novel that I had completed 5 years ago that was collecting dust on my computer, because this is what you do when you ask yourself a question that you are a little bit afraid of answering. You run away. But no matter how far you travel, or how successfully you distract yourself, because I did really tell myself I was working on my novel. Every day for 7 months, I worked on my novel. You can't outrun that answer. It's going to catch up with you. And it's the answer to that question that I want to share with you today. But I cannot do it without a demonstration. So if you will humor me for a moment, take out your cell phones and hold it up in your right hand. I'm going to mirror you right here. Hold it up in your right hand, right over your head. Yeah, take it out from wherever you have it hidden. I know Ted has a thing about phones being away. Now take your left hand and put your palm up like this to the ceiling. All right, now take your right hand, the one holding the phone, move it slightly to the right, and bend your wrist. Place your phone in the hand of the person next to you. Do it. If there isn't someone next to you, put your hand in the put your phone in the hand of the person in front of you, and then let go. Let go. I'm going to take your phone. I'm taking your phone. Here we go. Let go. Boom. All right. Don't give any phones back. Not until I ask you to. Just hold on to those phones. How's that feel? Yeah, nice. Maybe you're a little uncomfortable. Yeah, discomfort, anyone? You feel vulnerable, scared, liberated? What if this person were to get up and leave with your phone in their hands? Perfect. What if they go into your phone now? I know you have some kind of locking mechanism in there, but imagine for a moment, this person's a technological ninja, and they are in there going through your messages, your emails, those photos, secret folders. How's that feel? I mean, raise your hand if you feel a little bit stuck here. You can't even go to the bathroom to... No stuck people here? Nobody feels like they can't even get up and leave because they don't have their phone? Wow, I must be captivating. Now my next line is totally moot. Isn't it funny, though, how simple act like that, we give up a little bit of our freedom. And that concept of freedom, that's really interesting. That was interesting to me even before I went away to Canada. Freedom, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that it's important to us. Every human on this planet wants to be free. Now, when I talk about freedom, I don't mean freedom from bondage. I mean that internal state of freedom that Nelson Mandela experienced and wrote about long before he was released from prison. I'm not talking about social or political freedom. I'm talking about that internal state of freedom that Dr. Martin Luther King experienced and spoke of long before the first African-American citizen of this great country was able to vote. I'm also not talking about financial freedom. I'm talking about that internal state of freedom that Eckhart Tolle experienced and talked about long before he wrote his first best-selling book or filled his first seminar. When we meet these people or see these people who live from this internal state of freedom, we are drawn to them. We call them charismatic. Their authenticity, their confidence, it's magnetic. We are inspired by the clarity with which they share their ideas with us. This is the kind of freedom that does not require proof or justification, and it definitely does not need any permission, because this is the kind of freedom that the only person strong enough to stand in your way of experiencing it is you. So it's 2018. My life falls apart. I go away for a year, and this is what I learned about freedom. Even though freedom is the ultimate human experience, even though we all say we want to be free, even though we admire those people who live from this internal state of freedom, when we build our own lives, we make sure that the upper limit of our human experience does not actually include freedom. Let me say it another way. We want to be free, but we build cages instead. That this statement is a very bold statement, but to confirm it, all you have to do is look at your own lives. So, have you or have you not stopped thinking about your phone since you handed it over to somebody else? Maybe you forgot all about your phone. And if you did, congratulations. But if you didn't, how can you ever really be free if your identity is somehow tied to those 4 inches of glass, plastic, and metal that your neighbor is holding right now? You see, this is how we put that cap on our human experience, and we rob ourselves of our freedom. We tie our identity, our I am-ness, to things, people, places, stories, and experiences that really have nothing to do with who we really are. This is why it's so hard to answer that question, who are you? Because intuitively, instinctively, we know that any answer, anything that we put up after those words, I am, has nothing to do with our I am-ness. All of that stuff, everything we can muster up, everything we can come up with, is just stuff. And I love that word, stuff. It is so indifferent. It's so nondescript. It's what do you have in your fridge? Stuff. What do you want to do tonight? Stuff. What have you tied your identity to? Stuff. Now, I'm not saying that stuff is somehow bad. And to become free, you have to relinquish everything, go live on top of a mountaintop somewhere with nothing to your name. That is not the takeaway here. It's not the stuff that puts that upper limit on our human experience. What robs us of our freedom is the false belief that it is the stuff that somehow gives our life its value. It's you thinking that you have to justify someone's affection or even attention toward you with the way that you look, the service that you provide, the things that you own, or the stories that you tell. It's you saying, I am because I bought the iPhone 11. I am because I was abused as a child. I am because I don't eat animal products. I am because I went to an Ivy League school. No, you are because you are. Sometimes you drive your dream car, sometimes you sleep in your car. Sometimes people are mean to you. Other times they're quite kind. Sometimes you look like $1 million. Other times you really should take a shower, but none of that is who you are. All of that is just stuff. And I am no stranger to tying my identity to stuff. I did it for a very long time. I was a professional at it. And if you knew some of my stuff, you would think I was completely justified doing that. For example, my father was an international con man. Before I moved here at the age of 15, I lived in 4 different countries, mainly because we were on the run. I changed my names a few times, lived in refugee camps in Germany, and moved 8 or 9 times a year, multiple years in a row. I have so much stuff to pick from, it's really hard for me to narrow it down to just the highlights. I mean, do I tell you about not being allowed to speak the only language that I knew just because our fake backstory didn't include that country? Or about all the beatings that I received for not getting a perfect score on any exam in any subject. I know my stuff is unconventional. It might be a little dramatic, but here's the thing about stuff. My stuff is not better or worse than your stuff. It's just different stuff. Stuff cannot be good or bad. Stuff's kind of like tofu. It soaks in whatever flavoring you're cooking with. And the only reason I'm sharing my stuff with you now is to demonstrate what happens when you tie your identity to your stuff. The more I tied my identity to my stuff, the more I thought the stuff is who I am, the more I robbed myself of my freedom. I developed severe nervous tics, anger problem, and fantasies about taking my own life all before the age of 12. We make ourselves sick when we think the stuff is who we are. Today, we have the most depressed, most anxious, most suicidal teenage population that we have ever had in the United States. Jean Twenge, the author of the book iGen, attributes this to an increase in smartphone ownership among this population. And what do smartphones do best? They show you that who you are is all wrong. They give you all sorts of shiny new things to tie your identity to. And then they help you lock those new false identities into place by giving you all sorts of ways of declaring them to the world. And all the while, you are forgetting that who and what you are is so much greater than any of that stuff. Isn't it time that you let who you are be enough? And you let everything else, all this stuff, just be that. Stuff. It took a whole year and 10,000 miles for that answer, the answer to that question, who are you, to finally catch up with me. And when it did, I understood why it was that question in particular that had the power to set me free. Because freedom is not something we learn or aspire to. It's not a thing we can fight for or even attain. It's not a thing to be acquired, and it certainly cannot be granted. Freedom is the emotional signature of who we really are. When you remove all the stuff that separates you from yourself, what you are left with at the very core of your being is freedom. Now you can take back your stuff. Woo!